Hello, friends and families. Once again, welcome to our SQL with Microsoft Access for Beginners tutorial. Now, my name is Prince Armstrong of Armstrong Computers. Now, if you could know, in our previous lesson, we learned about how to use SQL. Hello, friends and families. Once again, welcome to calculation. More or less, that is the three ways of creating a calculated field, and that is what we dealt with. As you can see on your screen, that is our first lesson. In our previous lesson, that's what we learned. And today, and as you can see, if you are joining me at the first time, or more or less if you are joining me for you to forget, this is what we learned in our previous lesson. So you can just take a recap of that, and then you get the whole understanding. So that is basically that. So without wasting my time, let's move to the next segment. So as you can see, this is what we did. Sorry about that. We created something about, that is, engineers creating a table with the help of the SQL for us to better understand what really SQL is and how to create a calculated field, and that is what we did here. So I'm going to start all over. Today's segment, we'll be looking at something very interesting. For today's lesson, we'll be looking at how to, today being lesson 2, we'll be looking at how to create a table. How to create a table. But first, let us all understand what really is SQL. One thing about SQL, or SQL, that is structured query language. It's an advanced programming language, okay, used in Microsoft Access. In other way, for you to better understand, it is an advanced programming language used to interact with Microsoft Access. And today we are going to look at the basic concept of how to use SQL to create a table. Without wasting my time, let us look at it practically. So as you can see in our previous video, in our previous lesson, this is what we dealt with, and we created a table. So I'm going to start all over again. So I'll erase all the content, and I'll go ahead and then delete my table. So if you have it, just right click on it here and then click on delete. You can see it here from the drop down. As you have delete, click on yes, but it will not delete because my table is opened. So I'll close the table, close my SQL, do not save, and I'll delete my table. Right click on engineers and click on delete to click on yes to delete my table. For you to better understand, let us look at how to create a complete database for students. To do that, what I'd like you to do is that go ahead and close the database, which is for Microsoft Access. So that is what we'll be looking at today, creating a table. So after you've closed this is your desktop. As you can see, this is my desktop. So I'll just press the start button, and I'll go ahead and type access. So you can see here I'm using Microsoft Access 2013. Okay, so I'll go ahead and double click on it. So as you can see, this is my access view, and this is it. It is Microsoft Access as part of Microsoft Office Suite. So if you have Microsoft Office Suite on your computer, automatically you have Microsoft Access. So now, as I have Microsoft Access here, now to create a database, remember in our previous lesson we created a folder on the desktop where we saved, the engineers database in that particular folder. So the same manner, we are saving this folder or this database name students in the engineers folder. So to do that, might just click on where we have blank desktop database. Then you can see where we have database name. So the name of my database is going to be students. So students, so that is the name. So that's the name of my database. Now I have to click on browse to select the location where I would like to then save my database. So I'll click on my browse. then I'll go ahead and specify where I would like to save my database. So I'll just screw here and select my desktop. Then you can see we have engineer 1. If you could watch, previously I was already having engineer, so I name it engineers 1. So I'll save it here as in the engineer folder, where we have our previous database known as engineer salary. So I'll go ahead and save this and name this as what? Student. Students. Then I'll go ahead and click on what well, I'm supposed to be saved, but it is indicating as open. So I'll go ahead and click on OK, and go ahead and click on where we have create to create my database. So now my database is created. Now for you to get the whole understanding, when we talk about a database is an organized collection of related information that is stored in a file. Or one can say a database is a shared integrated computer structure that have an end-use data that is integrated and managed. So this means that you can have a database structure, but if you don't have an end-use data, it's not a database. So that is just that you know. So the next time I'd like us to just move on. Now we're going to look at how to create our database. So for us to create our table, because in the database contain a database object. So a table is a database object. So a table or an object table, form, query, and report. These are all database objects, and that can be selected and manipulated as a unit. So basically that is just that. So now we know what a table is in a database. So far as Microsoft Access and SQL is concerned, I'll go ahead and then close this. So after closing this, remember I'm using SQL to create my database. So I'll go ahead and click on create. Then I'll look through my create ribbon, okay, under the query logical group. Then I'll click on where we have query design. Now after clicking on query design, you see that we have what we have show table. Now this is the show table. Now you can choose to close it, which is very advisable. Not like choose, you need to close it. So I'll close it. So for you to move to the SQL view for you to then create your table, you can then look through the design ribbon under the results logical group and click on where we have SQL here. You click on it and it will take you to the SQL view. But again, when you are at the design view, you can also look through the status bar here, down here where we have SQL view. You click on it, it takes you to the SQL view. So you can use any of these to switch to the SQL view. So I am in the query view, which is my SQL view. So I'll go ahead and backspace the select. So for me to create my table, as I just said, I want to use Notepad so that you guys can see the code very well. So you can use the Notepad, or you can type directly, and then to run it, and it will surely work perfectly. So as you can see, I'm using my Notepad so that you guys will see how that has been done. So I'll go ahead, let me zoom it a little bit so you guys can see. So I'll go ahead and create my table. Now the name of my table is student, because I've planned everything here for you guys here, so you guys will look at it. So as you are watching, so just go straight and type create. So we're going to use the create statement. So the create table statement is used to create a table in Microsoft Access. So I'll go by saying create table. Create table. So the name of the table is students. Create table. Okay, so the name of the table is students. So create table name students. So I'll open my parentheses, close my parentheses, in between my parentheses, press enter, and I'll go ahead to define my table structure with the SQL. So the first ID I'm going to then call is the student's ID. Students underscore ID, which I want to use the auto number, so the number will display automatically. O2 number. So here I want it to be a primary key. So because it's a O2 number, but it's supposed to be a primary key. So every first field have to be a primary key. Primary, why? So key. So primary key. And I'll bring my comma, press enter. The next field I would like to bring is called first name. First, okay, name. Now here I want the data type of my first name field should be varchar. AR. And the fill size of the names, I want to make it 25. Then followed by last name. Also varchar. And the full size, I want to make it 25 also. Then after that, the next thing is, let me bring address. So that the next field, address, let me make it also varchar. And the full size, let me make it 50. Comma. Then the last, let me call it, let's say, telephone. Let me use the hash to represent the number, telephone number. And I can use int because it's to become integer. Or I can also use varchar. Varchar is like a text data type that accepts both text and words and numbers. So let me say, let me use int, that is integer. I'm going to explain why I'm using int. So after that, let's go ahead and call this. So integer and done. So let me use this, let me make this pay, like student is paying. So pay, just a field, and I want to call it varchar. I'll show you what we can do first again. Varchar, which can accept money any which way. Can use currency, but let me use varchar. So let me make it just 25 as my field. So I'm done with my table. So here you can see I open bracket here. So I'll come here and then bring my semicolon nicely. So the last field, I don't need to bring any comma here. So what did I bear in mind? And the primary key is my student ID. So I'll go ahead, copy this, paste, and I'll look through my design ribbon and under results logical group, and I'll click on run. Well, the syntax field definition, the O2 number is not accepted. So if I want to use the O2 number, so let me use not now. Run it again. Still my O2 number is not accepted. So well, as you can see, the O2 number I'm using here is not accepted because I wanted to display. So I was trying to use not now here. So not now. So let me copy that from the top and change it from here, paste and run. So run. The not now is also not accepted. So what I would do is that I will do it int. So int not now. And run. Still not accepted. So far as my hash is concerned. Well, it is so funny when you are using SQL. So you can see here it's telling me that telephone, the hash I put here is not accepted. So let me just go by saying telephone dots for my number. plus A. Let me highlight it so you can see I changed telephone dot and then it's integer. Copy that, highlighting this, paste. So and I'll run. So now you can see now my students table is got created. Now, why did this happen? Now, the reason why I did this is that for you guys to understand that for you to use the auto number field, you cannot just go straight and say auto number and it will work. No, you need to use some constraints which I'll be teaching you in our last lesson regardless to how to then go ahead to assign auto number. Let me send all to the default. When it works, we use hash. The hash here, we don't use the hash here. This is an SQL command because in SQL the hash stands for, especially when you are trying to include dates, and when you're trying to include dates inserted, we use the hash. It is a syntax that we use in an SQL, more or less. It's a special case used in SQL to complete a task. So all the time, when you always use hash for numbers as you use in design view, normally it will not work. So that is why we use this instead of the hash to represent telephone number. You can type it directly and it will work. So as we've created our table, when I double click here, you can see that our table is created nicely. So I have my student's name, I have first name, last name, address, telephone, and pay. Well, any which way. So basically that is just that. Now let's go ahead and then save this let's save this SQL statement as create table student. So copy that, and you can choose to right click on where we have query 1 and click on save, and then you give it a name as create table student and click on OK, and that will be saved. So thank you so much for watching. My name is Prince Armstrong. Catch you in the next lesson. That is just that.